First dish I'm going to do for you today is salt beef. We've got a bit of malt crumb on there, some pumpkins, some caraway, a semi-gel of gherkins, piccalilli dressing, raw radishes, salt beef that's been cured and braised, celeriac parcels with a remoulade inside. So from a dynamic flavour point of view, there's a lot of flavours going on that. We're using isomalt, which is an inverted sugar, and two of the reasons why we're using this is because it's less sweet. Because it's a savoury dish, we want too much sweetness into the dish, although we have got malt extract which is slightly sweet and some demerara sugar. The whole sweetness of this is quite low. One of the other reasons is that it won't attract moisture due to the hygroscopic properties it has, so it doesn't make the biscuit damp in warm or humid conditions. It keeps it quite crisp. So the method we're going to use for this is the normal creaming method. So sugars with the butter, cream, add the flour and the pumpernickel biscuit, bring to a paste and roll out to a crumb and bake 180 degrees. Now the butter's quite soft. This is the creaming method. We're going to add the sugars. So the first is the dry sugars, so it's the isomalt and the demerara. And then the malt extract. Now the sugar's been added to the butter. Slowly add the pumpernickel cracker. And then the flour. Now at this point, try not to overwork the mix because it will become quite tough. Now the pumpernickel biscuits have been put into the butter and the sugar mix. We fold in the flour, the baking powder, the salt and the squidding. Because this has been on the machine for a few minutes now, we don't want to keep it on there too long because it'll make the whole mix quite tough, and we want it to be quite crumbly, flaky on the mouth. Okay, we've brought the mix together. That's been rested now for about 20 minutes. Divide it into two. Now the aim of this is to get it quite thin, so it doesn't take too long to bake. And we're looking at about 3 to 4 mil max. As you can see. Okay, this goes into the blast chiller or a fridge for a little bit longer than the chiller until it's firm, and then it's baked for 10 minutes at 180 degrees until firm. Now the malt soil has been baked. We removed it from the oven. It's cooled slightly. As you can see, the texture is very crumbly. So we don't want it again to a fine powder. We want some texture still left into the mix. It's almost more volcanic in structure. So that's the malt soil crumb. What we're going to make is the caraway and brioche crumb. So to start with, we've dried some onions. So normal onions, sliced, put in a dehydrator. And what the dehydrator does, it just takes out the moisture, that's all it'll do. But what that will do then to the product is just intensify the flavour, so it concentrates the flavour. Water will dilute, you remove the water, you're only going to intensify that flavour. So it's been drying overnight. In the Robo Coupe, we've got some brioche, just normal brioche. If you don't want to make it, just buy a very good quality. So they get mixed together and liquidized down to a crumb. What we want is an open texture because we're going to fry these in beurre noisette, just to give that small cornflake-like crunch. So the brioche crumbs and onion into the butter. The butter will be absorbed by the brioche and the onion skin. Once it starts to brown and caramelize and firm up, the butter will start to come back into the pan. And as you can see, the fennel and caraway have been beautifully toasted. So not too harsh, not bitter, just to release those oils. So what we're going to do now is powder that down into a fine powder. That's going to be mixed with the crumb and then some pumpkin seeds, and that forms the finished crumb. Now the fennel and the caraway have been beautifully roasted just to reveal the oils, get that maximum flavour. We're going to turn them into a powder. You can use a Thermomix, something small like a spice grinder, maybe a morsel and petal, which will take a lot longer. But what we're looking for is a nice fine powder just to move those flavours through the crumb. Now they've been ground down, nice and fine, a nice fine powder. That's going to dissipate through the crumb and give a nice even flavour throughout. So all that's left to do to make the crumb, mix that with the toasted brioche and the onion and some pumpkin seeds. We're going to make the gherkin semi-gel. So the first thing is cold liquor out of the gherkin jar. Some agar needs to be going in cold. So in the pan, bring it to the boil. Boil for at least 45 seconds to activate the agar. Continually whisking. Okay, that's been boiling now just shy of a minute. Now to speed the process up, we're just going to pour it onto the tray to cool it down quickly. Agar sets approximately 42 degrees centigrade, so it'll set at room temperature. Now the pickle and liquor's set, what we need to do is break down that structure. And breaking down that setting structure, the matrix of agar, allows us to have half set, half liquid, which forms a semi-gel. So it just goes into the Thermomix. With this amount, you'll need to take it down from the sides, but persevere, still keep blitzing it, and you get a nice smooth gel. Okay, now the semi-gel liquor has been pureed. Mix that with the chopped gherkins. That's ready for service. Part of the dish is compressed celeriac. So the first thing to do is to block off the celeriac, cut thinly on the mandolin, place in a vac-pack bag, and the reason why we call this compressed is it's going to get compressed under vacuum. We're going to add a small amount of dressing, vinaigrette, just to season it, and what this offers the dish is something quite raw, quite crunchy, so it's textural as well as flavour. And as soon as it goes into the vac-pack and gets pulled under vacuum, it opens and breaks the cells of the celeriac, which increases the flavour. So normal vinaigrette dressing, oil and vinegar, and then it goes straight into the vac-pack. Now the celeriac's been put in the vac-pack bag and the air's been taken out, so it's under vacuum. You can distinctly see the difference between compressed and standard. Now what this does, it just increases and intensifies the flavour of the celeriac. This is a celeriac parcel. So as you can see, it's the compressed celeriac, which has got that raw, that crunch, that different dynamic than the remoulade that's inside. The remoulade is slightly salted, julienne celeriac, some whole grain mustard and some mini capers. I'm just going to roll that into a nice little parcel. And what this will do, it'll just offer a different dynamic. So as the mouth goes down, it'll offer a crunch, and then that soft inside, which has got the mayonnaise, the mustard, the capers, the soft celeriac remoulade. To slice the beef, quite simple. Very sharp knife, nice and thin slices. Not too thin, so they're almost wafer thin, they start to break down. One that gives just enough structure. 3 or 4 slices to a portion, depending on what portion size you're looking at, but 3 to 4 is a good mark. Okay, and retain that just before service. I'm just going to prepare the radish now. These leaves are probably just acceptable. Anything that's a bit bigger, just going off green, remove, because you're going to eat this on the dish. So we want an angle, a slight angle, maybe about 20 degrees, just on the base. So it'll still stand up on the plate, as though it's buried into the soil. So that's the objective. Now we've got all the ingredients ready to present. We're going to start with the celeriac, then the semi-gel. Now when we're building this dish, we need to be mindful of what each element affords the overall flavour complexity. So we're putting 2 acids on here. So there's acid in here, there's a gentle undernote of mustard, so there's a little spice in there. This will overpower a lot, but not enough, you won't hear it sing. So it's almost symphonic. So it's a balance of ingredients that offer a flavour to the end. So when you're building the dish or presenting a dish, try and understand the flavour structure, because that'll give you the overall harmony of flavour. So some piccalilli. Some of the candied beets, so they've been compressed using the sous vide machine, the backpack machine, in the same way as the celeriac, but it's been with pickling liquor and some star anise. Then the beef, beautiful, look at that. So we've got to really make the dish look vibrant, high, give it some height and structure. So a combination of the crumbs, a little small radish in the... No. One just to forward it into the soil. Maybe change the direction. And then just finish the dish with some mustard frills. Okay. Salt beef, piccalilli dressing, semi-gel of Girkin, with some malt crumb, caraway and pumpkin seed.